Well, it's going to be that type of show. Obviously, talk about tech. Uh, Never mind what's behind you. Just watch what this blooming thing's doing. So I'm going to. I appreciate you all kind of hanging around because obviously it's going to be hairy tonight. I tell you. So let's get everybody on because you've all been waiting. So let's get Sunny on. Good to see you. And let's
Howdy.
let's get Divine and Dragon on. Good to see you. It's obviously
Good
going
to
to be
see
one of
you.
those shows, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Nice and crazy tonight. That's how we like it. So everybody, if you bear with us, the tech has decided to be a little gremlin tonight. So obviously, I will be really on it. So we've got all our usual items, but I don't want to get too far behind. All our videos all over the shop, but we've got all the resources that are necessary, and we'll stick to those. So enjoy the glitches, everybody, tonight, because there'll be plenty going on. Now, obviously, one of the first items we do, lads, straight away, and I think I've just got Boomer Doug coming on, so if he comes on, it would be handy. Everything's everything's playing up a little bit here. Right, Boomer Doug's on high. Right,
Hello.
we're going to go straight to what the F, which I've been saying quite a lot behind the scenes. So we might as well do what the F on the actual program that we were watching tonight before the tech went all a bit weird. So, the well, what the F? Here we go.
Tear? Sarah Jane?
Is this death? It's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.
What have I just seen? I don't believe it. I cannot believe my eyes.
Well, lads, I mean, I've got quite a few what the F items, but and we're going to tease everybody about what we think overall of the episode. I'm being teased enough anyway, as is. So, on the what the F on this great episode, the well, so to speak. Yeah, I mean, the clicks look good. It was all hyped up. Everything was looking kind of on the money. It looked darker. All the things I'd asked for. So there you go. And of course, the star of it really was Rose Aylin Ellis playing Alice Fenley. So this is what the issue was. And then there it was, 7:20. The FA Cup semi-final finished on time. That was one concern. So we get straight to our what the F items. So straight away, Sonny, what the F?
What the F? It took me straight out. We got another changing of the clothes scene with the music. The whole episode started off on the wrong foot right there. I was already upset. I fell asleep twice watching this episode. That's all I have to say for now. What the F?
For now.
Yeah.
Them's fighting words. Fighting words.
So, Divine and Dragon, your thoughts on what the F?
Amazing that with no lead-in and no information, they came up with exactly the right exosuits to exit the TARDIS in. Where the adventure is going on. Like
that off the
pissed
wrong
me
foot.
off.
Already, we're on the wrong foot with this episode.
That was a disappointment, let's say. And we still don't have a doctor's profile.
And Doug, your thoughts? Your what the F?
My big what the F has already been mentioned. I just cannot believe they just happen to wear exactly the same outfits. I mean, obviously from a practical point of view, it was just a costume design thing. The other what the F is, I've actually worked out a way of enjoying these shows now. My own headcanon is that during By Generation, there was some sort of anomaly, and what we have now is not the Doctor Who, but a character called Docky Who, who's a completely different character. And watching it with that view in mind, I'm starting to enjoy the episodes now because I'm not comparing Doctor Who to Docky Who. And I can go into that later, but I found I enjoyed this episode apart from that opening scene, which annoyed the crap out of the continuity bug in me.
Well, the thread, I will join you in a moment. If you appreciate, because of our little delay, I will go flying into some of the what the F items so to give you your money's worth, so to speak. And then once I've calmed down, we'll get back onto normal. So, one of the things about this episode is the RTD rationale. Russell T Davies said on Unleashed, and it's the kind of episode you should never do a sequel to. It's the sequel. Hold on. It's the sequel no one ever expected. So that's where we went. Frankly, right to that. Now, straight away, I know Rachel's been she's been texting in the thread, and Rachel on her channel, she's already been saying, don't touch my Midnight. And there's quite a few people who are a little bit kind of, why have you done this to Midnight? Did it need a sequel, etc.? So there's one what the F straight away, which is, did Midnight need a sequel? And did it deliver in that respect, just on that tight respect?
God, no. God, no. Nothing happened.
It's a tricky one for me. I mean, at my age, I don't mind my Midnight being touched every now and again, but I think, yes, they should have left it alone. But on the other hand, I didn't even view it as a sequel. I just enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah,
exactly. If he did something with it, but the real issue was, for me, wasn't the whole charm of Midnight was it was a limited setting. It was like the doctor was trapped, right? A base under siege type of thing. He was basically free this whole episode. He was walking around doing whatever he wanted. It was fine. It wasn't really a sequel to Midnight because the setup of the episode wasn't the same.
I have a theory about this. It's a co-writing credit. The guy that wrote it probably came up with the whole concept, and I've got a feeling RTD stuck his little oar in and said, hey, let's make this a sequel to Midnight. And I think that's probably what happened. He probably thought, if we did this, we'll get some more people watching, which probably
that's what he said that's what he was saying on Unleashed, that basically you had hold on, you had the context, you had this, you had that, and then he said, and then we thought. So that was it. So there, and we're going to, and then we'll come to the details in a moment, everybody. But let me just ramp through this. The other what the F is of course, you got the Mrs. Flood for a second, didn't you? At the end.
Yes. Best part of the episode. She's the only good character. This was the only plot of the episode, because now we actually know why she's interested in the doctor, and it's something so stupid.
Well, what strikes me, during the course of the run, Mrs. Flood has been used to break the fourth wall and directly address the audience. When she appears in the story and she is actually servicing, quote, an element of the plot, unquote, what decision is he trying to make? Is she a participant or is she an observer? And I don't think RTD has been clear on that.
No.
I mean, we've got here, I mean, I'm just starting to wonder whether every episode she's been in full play. You just see a little bit of her at the end. But for example, we had that, I've got the Galvatron energy or whatever, yeah? Now, that's what killed him in the giggle. So if she's all aware of this, she's very happy he's using the Vindicator. So in other words, she knows exactly where he is every minute. Therefore, in the second episode, Lux, she knew then he'd weaken himself with the bi-generation energy because he'd have to fight Mr. Ringading. I just start to wonder now if this is RTD's little trick, which is every episode you'll see her at the end, like you did see Missy, and every story, because maybe she's the storyteller, something weakens him. So by the end of the series, he's fully weakened. I'm just wondering if it's something like that, and whether it's the payoff works. That's the thing.
I don't trust that the payoff will work. So far, if you look at the previous season, how well did that payoff work? How satisfied were you after 8 episodes when we got to Empire of Death? I get the impression that a lot of people were somewhat less than satisfied. Am I mistaking something?
No, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who liked the episode, and there's a lot of people who said, "Oh, it's somewhere in the middle." It's one of those. I've been poring over all the resources I've got, and I can see there's a lot of people giving it 8 out of 10 to 10 out of 10.
I'm sure, and I know why. But I'll do you one better. You even have to go back to last season. Why didn't the entity attach himself to the doctor? Right? If we're weakening him every episode, right? Mr. Ringading took some energy last episode. The entity should have actually had a consequence to the doctor. And then it could have it would have been invisible with the next episode or whatever, but it could have came back in the finale. We don't have that now.
New
It's just
version of
off doing
Sutek.
whatever it wants.
A new version of Sutek, and the Doctor is now the TARDIS, and an entity has attached itself to him.
Yeah,
Well, let's
but
have a look.
it should have attached itself to. There should be consequences, right? It just wasn't there, man. There was no consequence in this episode.
Well, let's have a look. I mean, I promised the thread. I'll bring them in for a second, and then we'll go into. So there's a lot of what the F items tonight. I tell you, Cybermat Strikes from the Detox thinks it's a different story from Midnight, and I don't know why we're getting our knickers in a twist. Although we haven't given our opinion on the whole story, we just don't know.
I agree with Dan. It definitely. I'm not even comparing it to Midnight, and on that level, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So it's not an original idea, says Paul Richards. Julie Coonan, no, it didn't need a sequel. Luckily, it didn't have much in common, so it hasn't ruined Midnight. We've got Matthew McGee. Ncuti cried again. We'll come to that in a moment. Of course, we will. Paul Richards, I'm sick of seeing Gatwa cry. As I said, we'll get to some of those items. Paul Richards' constant past references makes it all feel so stale to me. Let's have a look. Steve's there as well. There's a whole lot of ideas coming through, and I will try and pick up a few more as we go. But as we go through, let's go back to... let's have a look. So, Mrs. Flood, is that going to be a payoff? But we had all these little items, didn't we? Bits of dialogue. So, I'm not... look, there was the issue about them getting out the TARDIS, and for once they look exactly like they should, as in for their context, which has never happened before. And in this one, I'm not loving the look, babes. And then I almost cheered this bloke. It's not appropriate to call me babes, but then he comes back, okay, hun. So I am finding this to be, I mean, it's quite grating. He says babes to nearly everybody, and it doesn't work. My dad and people his generation get told off by women sometimes by saying, don't say pet, don't say flower, don't say petal, don't call us a bird. Yeah? They see that kind of affectation of a certain generation. That's seen as so yesterday. So how is it allowed in 2025 that a modern man says babes to everybody, making them either infantilized or making them sound as though they're baby, like babes, woman? Sorry, why is that acceptable? But other people get told off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not acceptable. It killed the whole episode, and it took me right out of the episode. This was where I was nodding off, going to sleep. I was like, aha, Brendan will laugh at that maybe, but it's not helping the plot at all. This is what's happening here, is it?
It didn't work for me. And like Sonny, it throws me. You've heard me say this before. Gatwa is in the episode, so it's automatically a deal breaker because Gatwa cannot help but, whether it's through script or his own initiative, insert lines that destroy the gravitas of the character. And I don't like it. And even though there was less of it, the fact that I'm now so highly sensitive to it when it shows up is exceedingly irritating.
You're absolutely right. Although for me, I actually found him slightly more restrained this episode. The babes, like I said, to me now he's a character called Docky Who. He's not Doctor Who, and once I get that in my head, I'm okay. I'm almost immune to the babes. I think he was restrained, and I think he was almost acting in a few scenes. Even the tears were actually earned, but unfortunately, it's been spoiled by the fact that he's cried so much previously. I mean, imagine how powerful this would have been if he had never have cried previously.
Well, we'll certainly get to that. But I'm just thinking this is clearly getting written into the script. It's an affectation, but it's an affectation. Let's be frank, that other men from other generation get told off over certain things they say because, or it demeans women, or it objectifies women, or it does this, or it does that. How the hell does calling everybody else babes sound as though you're respecting them? It sounds as though you either think you fancy them or you're undermining them. Just stop it. It doesn't work. It's just stupid. And since, I mean, Sonny, you've said this yourself. You want Doctor Who to be distinctly British. There's no way men are walking around Britain saying babes to each other. And quite rightly, this Cassio says, hey, hop it.
I've never heard people talk like this. People actively don't like them talking like this, and this is the killing of the characterization that just weakens the plot even more. The structure. Your 8 out of 10 story is quickly falling because there's no character moments.
Nah. So there's our starter for 10, everybody, on that one. I mean, it has to be called out. John Yulden, taking Ncuti out of the story. Could you picture another Doctor in this story? That will determine whether it's a Doctor Who story for me.
Yes.
There's your answer, John.
I could picture another Doctor in the role, but you'd have to change certain elements of the script. I mean, I'm trying to picture William Hartnell going babes.
Oh, no.
He doesn't even like
dialogue.
Doc. He didn't even like Doc.
Yeah.
No,
So
the dialogue was awful, but I think another Doctor would have made this episode soar. Pick a Doctor. It would have been much better.
Colin Baker.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well, let's have a look. Let's have a look at more of the what the Fs and see what you think, and then we'll go right into the full item with our bingo scorecard.
Yeah.
Bill, be careful of her. And then, of course, Alice says, I can still lip read. So, I've got this down as the tick boxing, virtue signaling, and little kind of, well done script, well done. Because he's allowed to safeguard his companion, for God's sake. That's what Doctor Who's been doing since the year dot. So to then that little moment was almost like the beep the meep moment with Rose, wasn't it? Get your pronouns right. You do realize I'm lip reading. Yes, we know you can lip read. That doesn't mean I'm talking to you, though. Yeah? I'm not talking to you. And you might know what I'm saying. Tough titty. I'm not quite sure. A bit of nonsense, that, I thought.
Well, I get the feeling that there were a few moments where he was throwing in a line for the sake of virtue signaling. It should be a law. Nurses must be able to sign language. I'm sorry.
Me too. Yeah. No, you're
it
absolutely
feels
right.
like he's looking for something to hang his hat on. Here, I've got some agenda items to push. Yeah. And he made sure he slipped it in. And I'm sorry that every time that happens, it throws me now because I know that's more narrative pushing, agenda pushing.
I'll change my what the F idol because that moment actually made me vomit. I remember ranting about that and stomping around because I was like, what is a nurse supposed to be worried about sign language and not practicing medicine? What is she trying to say? And then you're going to cope and make that a character development for Belinda and I'm supposed to like her now? I hate her more.
Now, Lee Smith thinks I'm being harsh particularly. Remember, this is our what the F item. Now, what the F, there's only two choices. Either you saw something awesome, and there may be items we're going to mention in a minute, and bits that irritated you. Then we get on with the whole episode, right? So, Lee, you might find you surprised by what I say soon. But I
promise you we'll be positive, Lee. We will be positive. Well, I will be.
I am nitpicking over the script because RTD stays up till 2 a.m. and he checks everything and he's progressive and I have to worship at his altar. Yeah. And so that's all I'm saying. I will pick on blemishes. So, I mean, what did you think of this? It was near the end, wasn't it? 3 of them got into that kind of the craft. And then, of course, it said there were 4 in the capsule. So, of course, this was the giveaway that actually he's set it up. He's teed it up to visit these not-wees, these strange nothing creatures again.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Well,
let's see.
It only works if there's a payoff later. If he does an episode later and let's call the creature a nothing, and the nothing makes an appearance in the finale. Okay, he built it up. My suspicion is it's not going to have payoff. He doesn't seem to be good at giving a payoff that makes sense.
No, it was a tacked on twist ending, but I agree with you.
I get the impression, remember what I said about Mrs. Flood? If Mrs. Flood, every episode, is fully involved in the episode, you just don't see it. She was in the uniform. She was the commander in this episode. Sometimes she's the neighbor, keeping an eye on that chapter of that episode. Right. Okay. So therefore, what's happened here is, as we go to the end of the series, these nothings come back because they've now been released. And the nothings, he's got no bi-generation spare energy left. He's had that Galvatron, radiation and all the rest of it. And as we go through, I think there's an element where those nothings, he offered it in that craft. He said, "Get behind me."
Yeah.
Now, what happens if by the end of the series, Sonny, he has to do that? The thing has to go behind him. And then we need the David Tennant doctor back, because the other doctor, this doctor, is actually trapped forever. And if he travels forever around the universe with that thing on his back, he's gonna risk loads of populations. So in other words, Brendan's on it, you see. Go on, Sonny.
You hope so. That sounds like a lot of cope, because that would have happened this episode, and then he could have just been traveling with him right now, and then this episode would have had like a actual progression to the finale. It's like RTD can't set up anything, so like all of this stuff, like sure he could do this at the end later, but then only the finale would be a good episode. This episode would still suck.
It goes back to the idea of whether the story was engineered to be a sequel to Midnight, or was originally an idea that stood on its own and was retroactively fit as a sequel. And
that's exactly what happened.
If he does something with this, it's going to be an afterthought. It doesn't feel like it's going to be well planned out. So there you have it. As a matter of fact, look at the two preceding episodes. He could have been building into this, and there's no sense of that either.
I'm the ending, and I've seen Lee Smith and a few others, and I'll bring you all in again, but I'll just get us going. This is still a what the F. This is what I mean. I think there's a lot of questions. Now, the big question here is, this is called Doctor Who. And if it had not been, people are saying if the Ncuti Doctor wasn't in it and it was a different Doctor, would it have been a Doctor Who story? I think the question should be a bit different. The question should be, if it hadn't been for the Doctor being in this story, would we be in a better position? And if you think about it, there's the risk, the potential less deaths, because that thing would still be trapped on that planet. As it is now, it's loose. And
no, I don't agree.
Well,
but carry on.
Basically, the Shayla, she was in charge, and she said, "Unfortunately, Alice, you are contaminated. So, unfortunately, you're going to have to stay here." The Doctor wasn't happy with that because he'd bonded with the girl. So the Doctor then, he's not a toxic male. He just ignored a woman. But basically he said, "No, I'm not following that order. We're going to do a different way." And his way has now got that monster off the planet. And it was so clever what he did that the one he'd bonded with lives. And the woman who actually said, "I'd like my order to be followed," and he disobeyed it, she dies. I mean, how is this Doctor Who the great hero?
That's what I'm saying. Every character is a stepping stool for character progression or character moment.
I look at it through this lens, Brendan. The Doctor still doesn't have agency. He provided a solution to a particular problem, but in the end, it was the commander who sacrificed herself and resolved that story.
She was the hero. She was
the hero. And come to find out, given the very last scene, it wasn't successful. Obviously, the creature has been able to leave the planet and is now in outer space. So, in a great sense, he failed across the board to be an effective Doctor. Now, again, this works if there is a specific sequel to this story that pays off the fact that a nothing got off the planet. But I don't think we're going to get that.
I'm intrigued, but I'm not happy about this as an ending of a Doctor Who episode, because actually the Doctor has ballsed up completely. And actually, it took another human, and I'm not making the argument like I did for Robot Revolution or Lux that it was a human being who saved the day. In this one, yes, another human being saves the day, but actually she wasted her life because the things got off. So basically, it's even more of a balls up by the Doctor. And remember, we did episode 1 on toxic masculinity. By episode 3, he's countering a female lead and says, "No, we're not doing that." She said, "Leave one person left." 15. She'd been there 15 days. I think 35 people had died. So she was stuck there. It's really sad. She's got a 2-year-old, don't you know? And that's all. We had all the soap opera stuff. The trouble is, and obviously a few more soldiers had died. So by that stage, yeah, the worst case scenarios, those people on that expedition, all of them die, one survives, and the monster stays stuck there. As it is, the Doctor's now genius got it off the planet.
Mm-hmm. That is he bollocksed it up.
Yeah,
that's all I can say.
So where's the hero? Why do I watch Doctor Who then? Because where's the hero bit?
Because when he grabbed her hands and made her feel nice and safe and said, "I'll get you home, I'll protect you," and started kissing her hands, that's my emotional hero that RTD needs for me.
What do people in the thread think of this? Because I have just finished Pyramids of Mars, and the Doctor tells us about perspective, Sarah, that actually you might be worried about Dr. Scarman, but can I actually tell you about the rest of humanity and the universe, please, Sarah? In this one, he says basically, because I've bonded with this girl, we're going to do something to protect her. And I've promised this girl, Belinda, that I would protect her. So because of that, everything else is compromised. What? That's not the Doctor. That's
no.
Now, am I wrong, Thread? What do you reckon, Doug?
About what? Do I agree? Do I agree with you? I guess we must have watched a different program. I
slept through half of it, though.
I actually did have a bit of a doze. I had to watch it again, but that's just age. I was determined to approach this differently because I'm so sick of hearing myself say, "He's not my doctor, he's not the Doctor." So I thought, okay, that's not going to change. And I was watching it with my partner, and she's not a Doctor Who fan, and she really enjoyed it. I thought it was a well-directed episode. It was lovely to see it in a quarry again, and it was meant to be a quarry. I thought the set design was great. I thought the supporting cast were good. I just accepted Ncuti for what he is. He's Docky Who. He's not Doctor Who. Yes, there are holes in the plot. I definitely think
holes
was. Oh well,
this is why. This is
cavities.
Remember, this is still the what the F. We're just picking on either niggles or we're actually saying what was outstanding.
I know what was outstanding. When Belinda got shot, I was cheering. I was like, finally, some consequence. Finally.
Yeah,
and then you know, everybody's fine at the end, so who cares?
Sadistic so-and-so.
It was great. I was like, she's going to be a good character now. Hopefully. She didn't care.
Well, I tell you what. I like the perspective that Doug brings. If you see this as a send-up or a parody, and it's not Doctor Who, there are certain elements that are more passable. Because, for example, why are we unhappy with Gatwa as the Doctor or the way the Doctor is written in the story? Because we know what the Doctor is supposed to be. If it's not the Doctor, then it becomes far more acceptable because we don't have any preconceived notions of what the Doctor should have been for the last 60 years and has been for the last 60 years. So I think that it's an effective way of digesting the story in a manner that's satisfying, if we're going to get any satisfaction out of it at all.
It's the only thing that works for me. He's Docky Who. The 14th Doctor is just chilling in London till he feels better. And then at some point, he'll regenerate into a Doctor. And this is just some other person doing his thing.
Here we've got the next element. As you know, I'm going through forensically here. A nurse who can't sign, that's against the law. And then the dialogue, well, we have different laws, but you're right, it should be the law. I'm sat there thinking, Are we increasing our taxes on the NHS? Is this a new maneuver? Is he making a case that we need to pay for the training of every nurse in the United Kingdom to do sign language? Is this kind of another way of saying that anybody who can't speak English as well should have an interpreter paid for by the NHS? Where is Mr. Progressive RTD going here in this throwaway line that sounds beautiful and virtuous?
He was virtue signaling. I mean, I'm a bit torn about this because I actually thought that Rose Ayling Ellis, I think her name is, who was a brilliant actress. She was great. I thought that her being hearing impaired was going to be relevant to the plot in some way, and I was a bit saddened to find out it wasn't. So it was kind of a bit of a gimmick casting her, as good as she was.
Well, it said
it wasn't relevant, was it?
Well, they said because she couldn't hear the monster because it whispers, and when the monster whispered at the doctor, he cried. And the others heard the monster when it was behind them. So the fact that she was deaf meant that she didn't go mad, because the doctor said, no wonder because you couldn't hear the monster behind you all that time. So that was the element.
It was a bit tacked on though, wasn't it? But you're right, yeah.
Well, he's the doctor. Sorry, Sonny. I'll just show you. This is the great moment, of course. I mean, there were some doctor moments. I will credit them. But this is the one where he was talking to the monster, and the monster either whispered to him or something. And then, of course, I mean, we need to go close up because just in case anyone missed it. Number one, that's acting. And number two, there it is. Look, there it is.
The waterworks are crazy.
Oh. So
out of control.
I don't know. Are we really, Sonny? Is this going to happen every episode? He's going to cry.
Of course. Yeah, that's his trademark. That's
his trademark is not a profile. His trademark is a teardrop.
Yeah,
that's acting.
Instead of a question mark. Yeah,
he's acting.
Yeah,
and you're supposed to go, good job.
And as RTD said, you don't tell an actor to cry; they decide. So these are all apparently Ncuti's decisions,
really?
which is, I don't see any kind of facial acting in it. I just see the tea has been plonked on, and I know Rachel's talked about this before about whether it's actually just one of those. So yes, we saw it, everybody. But what I will say, and I just want to quote this person from Twitter: 15 cares about more than just saving lives. He cares about the emotional well-being of every individual he meets too. It's so beautiful and so strong in his Doctor. And that's why I think this is one of the best stories ever seen of Doctor Who. Because
well said. Well,
yeah, because he didn't save anybody, right?
But he said lovely things.
Mm-hmm.
He says lovely things to people, then he balls us up and risks people's deaths, but he says nice things. Isn't this the absolute walking definition of these virtue signalers? They always sound better than us because they say, oh, I like you. Oh, you're lovely. I love your heart. I'm a warm person. And they do all this stuff. And yet they'd kind of get you, high and dry, stuffed. Their actions do not speak the words they speak.
Well, I get tired of hearing, you're amazing. Didn't we get that from Belinda to the young soldier, introducing her to the equipment and the medical kit? You're amazing. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, we get another platitude. All right, we slipped one in, and this time it didn't come from the doctor. Okay. But it still feels like the same.
You're right. It's just so fake, because why didn't he bite the bullet then and take on the entity? Why didn't he take on the sacrifice then to show that he was the caring doctor who cared about the feelings?
Well, this is Sonny. I mean, this is where if people are thinking, oh, they're doing niggles all the time. No, this is when we show we're fair as well. On the What the F, here we go. I mean, people say that Jodie, unfortunately, never had one of those Doctor distinctive moments. I think here, wherever you are, stand behind me. Now, we know the Doctor, when he was David Tennant, was scared to death of this monster. And it was quite frightening how it kind of encapsulated him and took him over. So he knows what he's doing, which is he loses control. So when he says that, you'd say, right, that's the leader. That's you being brave. That's saying, I'll take the hit. So there's one of your doctor moments, I would say.
It don't count. He didn't take the hit, so it don't count.
Well, this is it. This is when you think it's a brilliant little moment, but as soon as that soldier says, "I'll have it," oh, go on.
Yeah, he said, "Great,
Yeah,
go through the well." Like,
that's right.
it don't count. I don't see it. It's not a doctor.
I think Sonny makes a very good point. Making the offer is one thing, but narratively, the character has to take the hit for it to pay off. Otherwise, it's a form of virtue signaling, and I don't think it's good writing.
Yeah, well, it's gone on for too long. We had Jodie Whittaker in that hellish, you know the episode, everybody, The Timeless Children, and it was an old geezer, wasn't it, who came to save them when you had the cyber lords there and everything, and he sorted out. The Jodie Whittaker doctor then ran, and we seem to have done this a lot now, where the doctor actually might talk big, make a lot of mistakes, or not even be on top of the plot. And then it's a little human who deals with it all. And I'm getting a bit bored with that. But I think a lot of those people who say, oh, the Ncuti doctor's amazing, will say, did you see that speech at the end? He said, get behind me. Yeah, no, but he didn't carry it through. So therefore, why is that making him so great? And then, of course, you had the toxic masculinity, didn't you? What the F?
Yes.
I mean, I have to say, quite rightly, they were in danger. They didn't know what was going on. Come on. If you were him and your commander suddenly said, this geezer who's pretending he might be 400,000 years old, in other words, is he on something? We are now going to listen to him. I mean, what? There's death everywhere. And this geezer's just turned up. You remember in the old days, Robots of Death and all of those, I said, you're Stowaway, Carnival of Monsters. What are you doing on our ship? You must be up to mischief. And they always suspected the doctor because of just appearing. And now, of course, you get that stupid psycho blooming paper out. And then suddenly it's all...
Psycho paper?
Yeah.
Basically.
It's very psycho paper.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but I get this lad. He's a soldier, for God's sake. And suddenly your commander's going, we'll listen to this geezer who's just appeared from nowhere.
I agree. The doctor should have been more restricted throughout the episode to create interest, to create adversity. There it is. But like, he just walks around and does whatever he wants. But even then, past doctors would pull it off sometimes if there's not a lot of death going on, I guess. But like, or if there is a lot of death going on, he can command the room quickly to get them moving. But like, I don't know. That's not the part that took it out for me, because it's like, yeah, people are dying here, and he kind of knows what he's talking about.
Well, Rachel here, theoretically, the doctor should have taken the hit. Colin Baker took the hit for the team, didn't he? As you know, Rachel, he actually did take the hit. You know, sorry, the Doctor Who show is safe, says Jane T, but not with you on it. So take the hit, mate, and clear off. Basically, that's what happened. He actually took the hit for the sake of Doctor Who, and now you've got this nonsense. I know. So there you go. I would challenge her as well. And then, you know, we were brought up with the Silurians and various shows where basically the Doctor's troubled by the military, troubled by weapons, the mind of evil with all the weaponry and that, and an Armageddon factor. And then he's quite happy to give the instruction to these lot to nuke the planet. I mean, the Doctor's now all up, he's up for nuking.
Yep. I'm sorry, it doesn't ring true for me. And again, the final recognition that this young lady now has nothing attached to her destroyed any kind of payoff at the end. So I don't see the Doctor ultimately making decisions that are in keeping with the Doctor. I don't see the story making narrative choices that are in keeping with a satisfying conclusion. And so many of the elements feel contrived. In fact, we're talking about toxic masculinity. I noticed that when they wipe out all of the soldiers in the quarry, you've only got the women with Ncuti Gatwa. It almost seems like it's selective in terms of the gender it's willing to target more enthusiastically. I know that's a visual, it's a narrative conceit, but again, I'm now sensitive to these types of directorial or narrative choices.
And
500,000 years in the future, they're a lot more tolerant. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you noticed the way it was directed? And actually, I've enjoyed the way she's this Australian
She's a good director. She's a good director.
She's an Aussie, isn't she? And she did the look, and she did this one. And
that's it. Yeah.
And I think she did it well. But what I wanted to say is the way it's directed. So, for example, if you really look, everybody, including in the thread, at what does the Doctor actually do in the episode, right, compared to other people, the director makes it look as though he's more important. So basically, you know, when out of all of them, just give him the job of opening the vault up where Alice is, and then it makes him look as though he's a leader. But it could have been anybody that. So the Doctor's the doorman, the Doctor's the Uber driver, the Doctor's, if you add it all up, all the Doctor does is glue the bits together going, that's that. Oh God, this is not working. Right, I'll do some magic. He actually patronizes soldiers and says, this is magic. He doesn't actually say, hold on a minute, I'll just do a bit of blah, blah, blah. He goes, it's magic. In other words, that is patronizing their intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, now and again, you need him to do his magic Harry Potter wand. Now and again, he's a good taxi driver with his TARDIS. And now and again, he'll explain something, like he'll say, I think I've heard of this species 50,000 years ago. That's all he's useful for. But does he do anything? No.
It's great lipstick for this pig.
Yeah, there you go. Well, look at the way that the human companions or any of the companions were drawn during the classic era. And the idea was they would ask the questions that would allow the Doctor to impart knowledge. And yes, they'd get into trouble and he'd end up rescuing them. But it almost feels as though everything is reversed, because if you'll notice, it was Belinda that realized the position of the creature behind Alice. It's the other characters that come up with the solutions ultimately that make a difference. And he's secondary in his own show. I thought this was about Doctor Who, not Doctor what?
Now, Stybox here, Styboy here, he calls the entity vile and a murderer. That's right near the end. Mm-hmm. With no other life on the planet, he has to make the decision to keep the entity from getting off and nuke it. Remember, his decision is to actually nuke a species, yet in Space Babies, he preserved the thing. And remember, just before he called it vile and a murderer, he called it my friend.
Yeah.
It's just stuff like that. This is still, by the way, I'm just reminding the thread, this is just the what the F item. You will be surprised by what we say about the overall episode, but you know, niggles are niggles, because these people are getting paid an awful lot of money to write episodes and make sense of them. So there's that. Now, this one is getting mentioned by a lot of people in the thread. So, in other words, a lot of people noticed this. I certainly did, and I'm sure the panel did. That moment at the end when Shayla, this moment when, you know, she sacrificed herself, and what a sad waste. It was a nice death, but a waste. Mm-hmm. But it reminded me of Alien 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was the classic. And it's funny because Space Babies reminded me of the Aliens ending. Except instead of getting into that kind of hydraulic thing and said, come here, you bee, she actually, in this case, goes, actually, you might be the last of the species, so I might actually let you live. There were touches of Aliens, and now there were touches of Alien 3, I thought. And of course, the great sacrifice of Ripley was she jumped into that, knowing that the alien gave birth from her body, it was dead. It was going to die. But in this case, it was just such a shame. Visually, not as good, of course.
I could see that, but you have to remember, RTD is notorious for borrowing, shall we say, from other sources. There's a problem with originality, and this is a symptom of that.
So if you want leaks, watch the Aliens movies. Okay, I won't watch Aliens anytime soon.
Yeah. Is there a Mrs. Flood
certainly-
character in any of them?
It's certainly very derivative. I even remember, I can't remember the exact episode. There was an episode of Star Trek where they beamed down to this colony and they've all killed themselves and gone crazy through some alien entity, and it was very similar to this. So it even goes back further than Alien or Aliens. It's a trope, though, isn't it? I mean, it's not original, but I still enjoyed it.
Oh, I mean, with Alien 3, I compared to Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty going over the Reichenbach Falls. I mean, it has that fall into your death and an honourable death and all that sort of stuff. It's just that it had a lot of power. Murray Gold's music was doing well, the direction was doing well, the acting was doing well, and the script worked there. The snag was her memory only lasts for a few seconds, before we then find out that it was a waste of her life, and seemed a bit of a shame. She gets a speech, she gets an honourable mention, and Mrs. Flood, I don't think will have recorded it.
Well, it's the damnedest thing. I want a payoff that gives me a sense of satisfaction. This reminds me of Sleep No More. We got the ending we got for that particular episode with Capaldi. There was no payoff. I get the sense there was probably supposed to be one. Maybe they ran out of time or ran out of money, but it didn't happen. But the circumstances surrounding that episode not paying off and this one probably not paying off will probably be two different things.
Well, it's not going down well, the music. I actually thought some of the music worked, but people are saying it was too loud. I'm seeing that quite a lot. I've watched the episode twice now. I mean, I have really pushed my limit here. I've watched it twice today and been to a football match, so I'm doing all right. Now, these are some of our new fresh blood writers. Pete McTee's done some before, of course, and he's done the Sea Devils spin-off. But this is our talent. And before I move on to actually our bingo scorecard, and really everybody then we let rip them the whole episode, I actually want to show you that obviously this was co-written, and of course she's given an interview, and listen to this. These are the great Doctor Who writers. If you got the chance to write an episode of Doctor Who set in the past, where and when would you like to set it and why? So she says, I'd like it in 60s England, as my grandparents came from Jamaica to live back then. I loved hearing stories from that time, and I've always loved that era. I love how fun the swinging 60s seemed to be in Britain back then. So I feel like it would be loads of fun to set an episode then. Excuse me. 1963 to 1969, there was a program called Doctor Who. Every week it was showing you versions of the swinging 60s. What the hell was Polly? I mean, hello, Doctor Who writer. What
hello?
Do you know that this program did actually start itself in the 60s and it landed in the 60s?
That's cool because we're so far ahead now. We can go back to the beginning. That's meta. That's cool. That's the season. That's in time.
Well, I get the feeling, Brendan, that many of the people that they're choosing are not familiar with the show. And for God's sake, if you get a commission, educate yourself, learn about it.
Yeah.
It just seems a little bit too I mean, the War Machines, Polly. I mean, hello. Come on. Of every era a Doctor Who writer could go, they want to go back to the 60s where Doctor Who started in the blooming first place. Do me a favour. Now, how did she get the job? And then we'll move on. My agent ran me and said that Russell has read your work and scripts. He wants to meet up and have a general chat. The chat was incredible. I really enjoyed it. He also gave me advice on my scripts that he read, which was really nice of him. So nothing to do with Doctor Who. Then at the end of the chat, he told me there and then that he wanted me to be involved with writing an episode. She hadn't asked for the job. She hadn't approached the BBC. She was just minding her own business, doing her own thing. Meanwhile, you know what I say in the stream, everybody, normally, I say, how many sci-fi writers can you find on a Waterstones bookshelf alive? Did RTD approach any of them? No, he approaches these young writers from the writer's workshop because he's kind of got that mentor guru status. They will not question him. And she didn't even apply for the job.
There's a bunch of people who want the job.
Brendan, I think you nailed it. He wants to be the mentor. He wants to be the deity in charge of everything. And it shows in his selections. Would you have found a writing team through this modality? Would you have trusted the results you were getting?
So I just wanted to point that out. It's the what the F item. I just wanted to show people that she just was approached as you are out of the whole of the human race. She was noticed. I just don't. Well. So there you go. So I know I've triggered everybody to death now. And you're going, did you even watch this episode, Brendan?
You've triggered me. I think I've watched a completely different episode.
I know.
The episode had a real hypnosis effect, and I wasn't falling for it. Like, I knew why people liked it. The tone was Doctor Who. Like, it made it look like you were doing a story. There was a villain that we seen before, and I know why he picked that villain too, because it was cheap. You can't see anything. He just spent the budget on the last episode. So like I saw the hypnosis. I wasn't falling for it, dude.
They can't hypnotize you.
No,
Lee Smith,
bottom of the barrel.
I'll try one more time. Lee Smith says we've been stuck on the what the F segment for a while. I suppose that's the beauty of it, Lee Smith, which is, can we just have a script that just goes from there to there and without niggles and all these things? I mean, there's a lot of sloppy things to pick up on. Now, let's get on with our scorecards. Everyone got their sci-fi scorecards, their broke hack bingo. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, let's play our broke hack bingo. Does everyone see what I saw? I mean, there's the actual scorecard not filled in with all our usual things. Remember, I completed and made and created this before the season started. So no cheats from me. Now, lads, this is the one I filled in about the episode. And now last week I missed one out because, things got busy. But we had the song and dance routine. We had the costume change, the Doctor weak and indecisive in parts. Because let's face it, he compromised the situation. And I've gone all the way through there. So on the well, we score quite big on the sci-fi scorecard, actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would count Mavity too when he called it magic or whatever. Like, I don't know. To me, that's like he just hand waved it magic, Mavity. Like he uses a word to hand wave the sci-fi away, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. We had the reveal at the end, and we had two reveals. We had the midnight reveal when the Doctor's in another room, and we had the build up to it, and then we had Mrs. Flood at the end. So
the part I like.
Isn't this? I mean, I sometimes wonder. I've made this a bingo scorecard, but every week now I'm filling in quite a lot of these. Is that a bad thing, or does that mean he's doing the sci-fi formula? Because if you look at some of these, it's like, is he just being very predictable?
He's being hyper predictable. Part of the reason you were able to put together the scorecard is because all of these are tropes that he is notorious for plugging in. And it's kind of like the drinking game. How many times is someone going to do something and you have to take a shot and see if you're still on your feet at the end of the episode? If you actually had to take a shot each time as the story was unfolding and one of these items popped up on the bingo card, you'd be comatose before you got to the end of 40 minutes.
That's a great idea. Why don't we turn this into a drinking game next show?
Yeah. I don't think that would work, Doug, if the technicals weren't working again.
I'm up for it. Get the shots ready.
So, I feel as though that, you know, I feel as though this is getting so predictable with what's going on. But when you look at the whole episode, I found that I was seeing sci-fi. It felt as though I was in a kind of sci-fi context. I felt as though the direction was good. I felt I was okay with the music. I'll be honest with you. I do think the deaf actress Rose Alyn Ellis was fantastic.
She was great.
Now, I don't.
What did she do? I mean, she was a good actress, I guess, but what did she do? She didn't do anything. She was a good actress because she sat there and she said her lines and she delivered them well. Like, okay, but she's not a. I don't know. Her character to me,
Sonny, I've got a feeling, Sonny, you're livid, aren't you? You are livid.
This episode really upset me, dude. I was like, why? I fell asleep twice. The robot revolution didn't do that to me. Like, well, really just bottom of the barrel.
Well, let's be fair. Let's bring this out then, because we're discussing the whole episode, and I'll just get the right photographs up in a second. But Sonny, let's explore this, because it looks as though we might be on slightly different sides. I don't know how I'm going to score it for tomorrow's program, with the criteria, but I think I have to be fair that it had a sci-fi context. We weren't taken too far out of the context by, you know, fans, a song and dance routine. He kept his structure. There were other things, and we've already discussed them, that took me out of it for a moment or two. But I thought, I mean, when it comes to Rose Alyn Ellis, you sit her on a box, you have her in this central vault. I thought it was theatrical because. And I thought that where Midnight worked, you really were stuck in that space capsule. And that ensemble piece really worked on the paranoia level. It was Crucible, wasn't it? It was the Crucible. Mm-hmm. This time he couldn't quite, and he couldn't repeat it twice. You just can't. So now we have different sets, but we were in that vault a lot. And I thought it added to a theatrical quality. So therefore she was given a chance to shine and actually... I mean, she had soap opera lines to a degree. I've got a 2-year-old. I want to go home.
Yeah, that was a bit cringe.
I have to say, Sonny, I was questioning that little bit about she didn't tell them there was something behind, did she? Until they'd started to work it out. So you start to think, well, how far should we be trusting you? Because you could have saved some lives. If you told us earlier that there's something behind.
Yeah, no, she was just like, I had to kill my friends or whatever. And she was like, I don't know what's going on. But then at the end, once the doctor knew it was the entity, at the end, she starts going like, yeah, that's what did it, guys. It's like, okay.
But that's what I liked about it, though. Through the whole thing, I was never sure whether she was going to be a goodie or a baddie. And she played it in such an ambiguous way that right up to the end, I was expecting some sort of reveal. So it sucked me in.
That's the hypnosis. That's what I'm telling you. Like the ride was there, and the tone was there. The structure of the sci-fi was there only because it was a sequel to Midnight. He was ripping off the story that came before, and he didn't even do that right. Because if he did that right, why not just trap everybody inside the well?
Yeah, true.
And then you have the base under siege element that the original had, and then it's a real sequel. But no.
Right. Well, Lee Smith is, and this is the only answer I could come up with, Lee Smith. So quite rightly, you've given us the answer too, because she didn't want to be shot and had trauma. I get that. She wanted to get off that planet. This was her chance. So yes, if she said, I've got something on my back or behind me, they, you know, oh, well, come on our shuttlecraft then, you know. I know. She had to think like a mother. So I get that.
Self-preservation, yeah.
Yeah, self-preservation. Because there was that moment, remember she pulled her face like she was tricking them. And it was that moment you thought, oh, is she that devious one? I thought she was actually going to turn into something.
Me too.
Well, I was wondering in my mind, she's got a 2-year-old. She can't wait to get back to it. Well, gosh, Lord help that 2-year-old if that 2-year-old happens to stand in the wrong position relative to mom. You're going to go home and kill your kid, deliberate or not. What kind of mother are you?
Mind you, it's a 2-year-old and she's been away for a year. So it's like, whoa, gosh, that's
expensive babysitter.
It's a bit out there. She was straight out of modern day England. I mean, Rachel has said it's one of the best performances she's seen. I'll just put that back up for a second. The thing is, Rose is from the soap. She had time to perform it and think about it. It's one of the best performances I've seen her do. I agree with that. It was a good performance. That's what you needed from that role. It worked. She looked vulnerable. She seemed troubled. Yeah, you had a bit of a suspicion, but she carried it well. And she was really pleading at one point. I thought that is working. Are you really pleased that the 15th Doctor is the first one who can do sign language? He's amazing, babes. He even did Honey in sign language. I mean, he's good.
He's Docky Who. He can do anything.
Docky Who can do anything.
Yeah.
I actually used to do sign language as like part of a school club type of thing. Like we do sign language songs. I don't care. This doesn't make me like him more or less. I do not care about this sign language.
You are livid. You are so livid.
I guess I would have been happier if, given the fact that you have a deaf character, if it was the audio component. If you're able to hear something, that's how they actually latch on to you.
That's what I was sort of clumsily referring to earlier. I think I expected more from her being deaf, and I feel like it was a little bit tacked on. I think you said it beautifully.
Well, I think the chronology was that the character wasn't deaf in the first place.
That's what I figured.
Then they give her the job, and then they realise they've got some interesting potential.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So, it was organic. I think they call it. Don't the lovely say it was organic?
Yeah. It was an organic development of the production process.
Oh, that's
now
great.
Rachel, Peter, a lot of people are saying it was a nice touch, Ncuti doing sign language. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying,
that would be a nice quirky trait on a Doctor I already liked. That's not a trait that would make me be like, you're a cool character.
The thing is, we've had a deaf character in before, and it wasn't an issue then. Which is fascinating, isn't it? That happens because I'm just getting the right thing up. We had our technicals at the beginning, which is always a lovely thing. Yeah. And of course, let me get this right. There we go. There was a deaf character in Under the Lake before the flood, and I don't recall anyone mentioning it or making a fuss about it. But of course, RTD did give a little chat about this. After submitting the script for The Well for a compliance reading, where typically they tell us what they've gotten wrong, which is exactly the way it should work, Davies explained this time it came back with a glowing report. In fact, one of the few notes he did receive celebrated a line of dialogue about how hearing people can get paranoid around those who are quietly signing. I've never seen that said out loud before, he said. As for Aileen Ellis's acting performance as Alice, I don't want to give away too much. The showrunner hedged. Is she the villain? Blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, she gives so much that your heart absolutely goes out to her. I'm so lucky to talk about her and to work with her. Now, he always does eulogize, but I think it's deserved, actually. But I can't remember the deaf character before, I have to say, in this period.
Can't remember.
But
I've never seen it.
I guess one of the things that point out people get paranoid if they can't hear. It felt like a general shot at the public in general, that people are generally fearful and intolerant. So it just felt like another subtle dig at society. So it was another one of those virtue signaling moments that was slipped into the dialogue.
They're trying to get across that she's vulnerable. And I did think the moment when she said, please don't turn your back on me because she doesn't know what they're saying, I think that really resonated. That was quite impactful, I thought. Because she just seems so broken and vulnerable. And what are you saying? What are you saying? Please don't turn your back on me. Which apparently they discussed that, and that was a line that was added once.
Yeah, it was.
Now,
Yeah.
this is interesting because I've been asking you your reactions and we'll continue, but Stephen Moffat hasn't held back. You've got 2 doses of Stephen Moffat today. One you can see on the left there, Stephen Moffat. Don't go online. Don't listen to anyone. Don't read anything anywhere. Just brace yourself for a classic. Blink's long day may be over. I don't think it is, mate.
No.
And then on the next one, you've got somebody tweeting, the well was excellent, but did anyone else feel this setting, this premise, these characters could have easily sustained a 2-parter? Oh, yes. And then Stephen Moffat says, it was perfectly paced and bloody brilliant. Right. Okay, you're always going to defend your mates and all the rest of it, but I would argue, I really would, lads, that actually that could have been a really good 2-parter.
Well, I'd say that Stephen Moffat has done a good job going to the school of shill. So that I think that speaks volumes. And you've heard me say how many times, stretch the stories out. 2-parters is not unreasonable, especially if the narrative will bear it out. And I personally like the idea of developing the personalities and relationships of the squad that came down for the rescue operation. And I would have set the narrative in such a way that they're getting picked off one at a time. And it's kind of a grievous loss each time one of those characters goes. Yes, you got to have a body count for a story like this. And yes, we were provided that, but we didn't have a chance to really get to know and care about all of those characters in a 2-parter structured that way. You could. So it's a lost opportunity.
I thought Lux was a missed opportunity, and I'm saying it again. And even those people who really, really adored the episode and were saying 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 were saying it could have a little niggle, it could have been a bit longer. And you think, well, exactly. Now, I just want to show you this because I want to ask the thread and you all from different parts of the world, because this is my irritation. Today I had to go to a football match, which meant that I wouldn't have much time on the night time to prepare for this. So I needed to watch Doctor Who in the morning because I knew that everybody would spoil it. And I couldn't avoid being online. So as this person says here, can I just say that I'm loving the 8 a.m. episode drops? No, I'm not. It ruins the day. Because he said, RTD said there was a killer.
My day is over.
The RTD said there was a killer reveal in episode 3. So, of course, you think, well, I'll either have to watch it as it drops, because there are people who are, as they're watching it, a screenshot and going, hey, I never knew that the toy maker was back. And you're thinking, are you watching Doctor Who? Are you just destroying it for everybody? I hate this streaming lark. What do you think, Sonny?
I'm mixed because, like, Lux, I almost felt that Saturday morning cartoon vibe. That's kind of why I liked it almost. But all this other stuff, no, it would work way better at an evening watching time. But I'm stuck watching it in the morning as well. It made me fall asleep. I don't get that Saturday morning vibe at all. I fell straight to sleep. Sorry.
What about you, Christian?
Well, I think a light episode like Lux works best in the morning. A dark episode like The Well works best in the evening. Sometimes it depends on the tone. And since Doctor Who should have a dark tone, it should be an evening release program. It's that simple.
The White Lotus didn't stream early. You know, I was just saying in one of my streams the other day that this is a choice. Doctor Who doesn't have to just, be available at any time of the day. It could start on terrestrial first, as Rachel's kind of hinting at here. And I just think you're going to lose something. If there's all these killer reveals all the time in this season, I feel sorry for people who they might have to check their phone because they're talking to their parents or a relative or a friend. And then it flashes up, the Valiard's back. And you think, oh, for God's sake, it kills the drama. And I would have thought RTD would be quite bothered about that.
Well, It's in the morning too, so you're a little tired, even if you just woke up. And I found myself missing moments, right? And going and having to go back and go like, did I miss a line? I didn't miss a line. He just doesn't explain anything. But I did find myself going back and going like, I don't remember what they said.
Yeah,
Because you're a little tired. So
we've got here. I mean, I'm going to show you a few reactions and get the reactions on your reactions, if you get my gist, just to kind of fire you up. The only thing I didn't like about the episode was Mrs. Flood at the end, because why is she literally just fulfilling the same role as Susan Twist?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who Susan Twist is. She's the only likable character. That's why she's there. I like that scene. This is the only good part of the episode.
I think I said it earlier, so I'll just be dead concise. The snag is we're adding nothing to Susan Twist from last year just appearing and Missy years before. It's the same little thing.
Yeah.
And, at least he didn't try and replicate Midnight exactly. And I think he needs to do the same regarding this. This other reaction here, I mean, look, this is where some of the problem was by some people's. Congratulations, RTD, in undoing another part of your legacy. The latest episode of Dr. Gay is indeed a sequel to Midnight. And before I begin, this was one of the better shooty episodes. Why? Because it wasn't offensive. That's the benchmark now. This sequel completely undoes the main points of what made the Midnight episode so great. You gave the entry form, even in part, the whole premise of it being a faceless, nameless thing is part of the reason why the episode is remembered so well. Next, you altered its motivation. No longer does it mimic the voice, then take over the host body. No, now it just hides behind you. Midnight was a masterclass in writing, where you had a single room, get as your set-in with nothing but mind tricks acting as a chief antagonist. This episode undid all of that. Now, I know from when we mentioned this earlier, some people are going, oh, that's not, I mean, where do you stand on that one, Christian?
I think he actually nailed it. If this had not been a sequel to Midnight, or they had not co-opted the narrative of Midnight to try and create gravitas for this story as a separate story, it would have worked better. But because we already have the function of the antagonist in Midnight, a lot of what he tried to do differently, unfortunately, undid what worked in the previous installment. So I am not happy as a writer to see that kind of execution for this story. I'm just not.
What about you, Doug?
Yeah, I think the Midnight thing was so tacked on. And it's funny, really, because the whole Midnight thing was born out of necessity, wasn't it? It was a budget thing, so they needed a bottle episode that didn't cost much. Like I said, I accepted this as a completely separate episode from Midnight, and we all know that he just did that to get people to watch, and maybe he wanted his writing credit on yet another episode. I don't know. Midnight should have been left alone. I think.
Well, Sandy. Well, the trouble is now we've got the fact that it's going to be part of something else. If I just. Sorry, Sandy, I'll mention your comment, then I'll show you. So Sandy says, I remember a character saying the entity was laughing when it came from the well. Yeah. So it obviously does have sound now. And if I just get my act together, let's have a look. So on this one, let's have a look. I think I should be... This was the reveal of the Midnight, and then this is somebody's theory. The Well is part of the trilogy, which altogether is Midnight, The Well, and Wild Blue Yonder. At the end of The Well, it says there's 4 life forms in the airlock when there's only 3 people. But we know the life form is attached to Belinda. So what if the entity, still learning, discovered the concept of one life form splitting into 2 from 15's memories of bi-generation? Half of the creature survives at the end and hops from ship to ship until it ends up where it is in Wild Blue Yonder, evolved into the Not Things, and it has developed its abilities to display as multiple life forms and divide itself. Anybody want to buy into that theory?
It has potential.
It does.
But has anyone ever heard of the term headcanon? Basically, we create these theories. If you have to go through that many steps to structure it and create a narrative that works for you, that means that a particular concept was not well executed. The fans should not be left having to do that at all. Now, maybe there there should be a through line or a connection, but if it's not obvious, if we are not seeing it, then again, it was poorly executed. That's just my take.
Rachel's interested in this. That's interesting. It's split. It would make it less convoluted. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I need to watch Wild Blue Yonder. I don't know that story. Where does that take place in the timeline? Because we know where Midnight is in chronological order, and we know the well is 500,000 years in the future. Where is Wild Blue Yonder?
Yeah, he basically said in the Wild Beyond, I'm just at the edge of everything, didn't he? He just said, I'm at the very limit. That's all he seemed to say.
Yeah,
so there's
so
no
it could be
time
any
frame.
time. Yeah, there's no time frame, so it could be any time.
It sounds possible to me, and that would actually fix up a lot of the nonsense.
It really would.
But again, if it's a trilogy, guess what? The trilogy is over. And did we get that kind of clarification on it?
If it's a trilogy, why did you tell it out of order?
Timey-wimey.
Yeah, well.
Timey-wimey.
What?
It solves everything.
So we've had some amazing reactions from people. So, for example, you've got I will say what made Midnight my number one story is the gritty analysis of human paranoia. So, as a result, the well is not quite on the same level. That's one idea. And Mark from Mr. and Mrs. Who, it's not a patch on Blink, Stephen. Your crown is safe. I thought the well was decent. It was okay. I didn't love it, but it was certainly better than most of the RTD2 stuff so far. But that's not a high bar.
True.
And I'll just finish with JWC reviews. Just watched Doctor Who. Actually, not too bad. The best shooty episode by miles. A clever story that didn't exactly thrill, but was actually fairly decent. Liked the ending scene very much. Shooty cried again, Kel surprise, but it's in the main, it was an okay tale. I'm surprised. And also felt a bit of the Exorcist vibe in the resolution of the well. Father Carras's sacrifice and the story looked fantastic. Not hugely impressive, but almost a return to form from the show. Very notable. What I will say, lads, is I'm still digesting. This is our first impressions. I think this is the best RTD2 story.
Definitely.
Definitely. In my estimation,
you're livid, Sonny. You can't. No, you're livid.
I can't have this opinion. Maybe. I enjoy the Lux a lot better.
Well, we all have slightly different tastes for specific reasons. I tend to just grade things holistically on a scale of 1 to 10, and I still don't feel we are in what I call the passing range of a grade point average. But of the lot that we've seen, it appears to be the strongest. And one of the components that makes it strong for me is that on the whole, it carried the darker tone from beginning to end. Let's bypass some of the nitpicks. Let's bypass some of the glitches. Let's focus on the tone itself. And that, I think, it successfully accomplished. So on that basis, it's working more effectively.
Well said. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, the frustration for most Doctor Who fans is, can you imagine if he'd taken his time, RTD, settled things, got Ncuti on board from Sex Education, and not started with The Church on Ruby Road, and not started with Space Babies, but started with stuff like this, done slowly over 2 parts. Lux done over 2 parts. It would be a much stronger season, and it would give a better launch pad to a brand new Doctor. Much more dark, much more atmospheric, showing off all your budget if that's the game you want to play. But Space Babies, what a miss-hit. Devil's Cord, what a miss-hit. Boom, okay, but a bit of a bore, to be quite honest. 73 yards, a game of 2 halves. Rogue, really, not even in my universe, mate. Do you know what I mean? Sutek is now, a diminished little dog. You could have started with these 2. And out of the 3 episodes I've seen from season 2, if these are all in his head, you know, RTD in every interview says, "Oh, these have been in my head for 50 years, darling." Well, okay, then this should have been episode 1 of season 1.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would think,
Yeah.
right?
Another lost opportunity, but
Yeah.
this whole run has been a sequence of lost opportunities.
Yeah.
It just is.
Backwards. It's upside down.
Now Sean joins us on me and Sonny on Tuesday when we do our Children of Time. He thought the pacing was slow. You see, I called it theatrical. It did have an element of that, and as Doug said, it is reflecting that element of Midnight, where basically it's a cheap episode. I don't think this was an expensive episode either, was it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they filmed in a quarry, which was effective, but it
Yep.
couldn't have cost heaps. And the set was a set. It was very theatrical, but it was an effective set. So yeah, I don't think. And let's be honest, they didn't spend any money on the monster. So, but it worked.
How are you finding this relationship with Verada Sethu and the Doctor? How is that developing? Are you finding you are warming to them as a team?
No, I don't like it at all.
No, Doug.
The chemistry is just not there. They did a better job with making Verada Sethu more tolerable, and so there's not the instant dislike you experience with her in the first installment.
Well, Sonny was glad she got shot, so that's how much he likes her.
Yeah,
he was happy she got shot.
Yeah.
That
was the most exciting thing she's done in 3 episodes.
Now, Rachel normally gives time. I mean, Rachel, to be fair, gave Ncuti a whole season really before she started to make a judgment proper of his Doctor. But she's in there straight away. I don't like Belinda. So, oh you gosh, she's there. I'm trying to work. I have to say, twice now in 2 episodes, she's said, "What about my mum and dad?" and da 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 da. And I'm thinking, I'm getting a bit.
That's character development, Brendan. That's what RTD thinks is a well-rounded character, as we learned from Lux. If you cry about things, so she just cries about her parents. How old is she? She's crying about her parents. How old is she?
But she knows she's in a time machine. So the whole point, she's worked that out now. So you will meet your parents again. Just get over it. Just, stop yapping about the blooming parent. Oh, my dad will be bowling tonight. Oh, my mum would be going to a creche today. All right. If you're with this Time Lord who is operating a time machine and you're wittering on about who goes to bingo on a Friday night.
That bugs me about RTD. He always does that. I know he does it for a reason, but it irks me when he does that. It makes the mundane part of Doctor Who.
He doesn't
yeah.
the hat.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We talk about the lost opportunities. We look at Wild Blue Yonder as a part of the anniversary specials, and I keep coming back and saying they needed to make that a single story, probably not using David Tennant since he's been overexposed. I'd go so far as to say you could actually have created a 2-Doctor 60th anniversary special in which you have McGann finally given 3 episodes. We're going to make it a 2-Doctor story. We're going to bring in Colin Baker, who was also given short shrift during the 1980s, to create a different dynamic between those two before you got to the end. And you have a Doctor other than Gatwa start off the Disney cycle. And, obviously we don't feel necessarily that Gatwa was a good choice to go with.
No.
All of these are opportunities. And yet every time RTD seems to squander them. He's very talented at that.
I am right. If I had to compare season 1 to season 2, which I am going to, Duncan here says, please give us an orphan companion again, please. I know, ironically speaking. That's why Belinda scores a bit better, because she's a bit maturer, and we're not doing this horrific companion arc of trying to find, parents and stuff like that, and who was the hooded claw who yeah, at least we're just trying to get back to earth. But can I just ask something? We had an amazing metaphor last week, which said that Vindicator is like a fishing line, right? Now, that fishing line managed to get him to 1952.
That
Now,
was
how
kind of
come if last week was 1952 and you send your little fishing rod out again and then you end up 500,000 years in the future? That's a rubbish fishing rod.
It's even more confusing because next week's a Dr. Light episode set on Earth, so doesn't that take a bit of the peril out of what's happened to Earth, unless it's going to be specifically mentioned that it's before all these events took place? I'm really confused.
Doug, I've tried to work this out. If it's a Dr. Light episode, it's called Lucky Day, and Mrs. Flood keeps saying 24th of May it all ends. And remember, on top of that, the TARDIS can't go back to the 24th of May. So I think if he's a good writer, Lucky Day is all about what happens to stop the Doctor being able to go back.
Okay, well, in that case, I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, that's me trying to stitch a series together.
No, I like that. I hope you're right. That works for me. Otherwise, I'm really confused.
You're asking for plot. I don't have that expectation at all. I don't have that expectation at all.
Yes, I'm asking for plot. Come on.
It's not as though you want your questions to be answered.
No.
Next season.
Next season, okay.
Now, I teed this up because I have to say we had some TARDIS action again. How many times didn't they say it's a sign of madness or stupidity that you keep repeating the same mistake? And are we going to start every episode with a Doctor trying to get back to the 24th of May when he knows it won't work?
I hope so. I really hope.
Then his Vindicator goes flying into the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. And then are we going to, every episode, have a dance routine to a pop song? Because we had
Toxic. Yeah, Toxic.
That was really bad.
I have to say, this is almost one of the things I'm struggling with big time, because they're turning the whole Doctor Who story into cosplay and let's do dress up in history. And why is the Doctor so excited? He's done this so many times. It seems to me it's an excuse to show off another ramp in the TARDIS and a special effect door. But since when were the TARDIS doors like Star Trek? You know, they were just a door when.
I don't know. You just got to be happy with your roundels.
I have to say, though, that TARDIS scene, despite all its faults, the director lit it really well, and I actually thought it had a nice feel to it for that particular scene. Nothing else I liked about it, but that worked for me.
But are we going to do this every week?
I'm sure they are.
But
I think they have to, don't they? They built this bloody set. They hardly spent any time in it last season. I think they kind of have to get their money's worth.
But they really are starting to make this like, the British viewers know what I'm talking about. Mr. Ben, that he goes into the fancy dress shop and he picks a costume and then he's all excited and he goes on the adventure. This feels like Mr. Ben. Doctor Who does dress up.
It kind of does, but for me, it feels like that show you had, was it called Stars in Their Eyes, where they go, this week I'm going to be David Bowie, and they go behind the door and they come out as somebody else. That's what it looks like to me. They go in, because they go in a different door, don't they? They go in the door and then they come out.
It's almost like an is it Escher?
Escher, MC Escher, yeah.
Or should I say? Or before you say any more, Christine, I'll go all Doctor Who. It's a bit like Castrovalva.
Yes.
There you go. Castrovalva.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes it. And I actually liked Castrovalva.
So did people in the thread like this? Honestly, and would you like this every week that they quickly go and get dressed up? Because he does that horrible affectation when she goes, am I wearing these clothes? And he goes, baby, this is the good bit. And you're going, what is this? The Doctor didn't dress up. The Doctor couldn't give a toss. The Doctor just said, I've opened the door. Oh, there's no radiation and there's oxygen. Oh, let's off we go. He didn't start saying, this is the good bit. Do you know what? I'm going to wear a fez this week. No!
I just want to see the wardrobe. From a practical point of view, just once, I want to see the room. How come all these clothes always fit? And how come they're always specifically tailored to the adventure? I mean, obviously we know why. It's production.
I've got another question. I've got another question. I'm full of bouncers tonight.
What?
If they're going to do dress up every week to fit into the decade or the era, isn't it cultural appropriation?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Every time.
King of the hypocrites.
Yeah. Oh, you know, Brendan's on one tonight. That text starting late has got me all fired up.
It was that bloody monster behind us that did it.
There you go.
It's just that I feel as though this is an action adventure, something else, but this is not Doctor Who. Doctor Who doesn't look like this, doesn't walk. It's a shame. It really is a shame because I do think in the last 2 episodes we've seen more slightly Doctor moments.
I agree. I'm thinking, as you said, if we started off with these 2, would we have been less critical, do you think?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, if you started with these, he's much more established.
Yeah.
Well, the key is to start with a very strong story and a strong characterization. And RTD, the master of missed opportunities, failed to accomplish that in his execution of Gatwa's introduction. And this comes back to the point of, is the series salvageable at this point? We're 3 episodes into the 2nd season. The ratings have been in the dumper last week. But this episode seems to generally be better received than the 2 previous. Yeah. Does this mean we're going in the right direction? And my conjecture is it doesn't matter. You only have 5 more episodes to hit a home run. I think the game is already over.
You would think.
And
this is poor structuring, surely. Forget the narrative arc and where he's leading us to. This is season 2 of Ncuti, not season 1, and the points we've just made. But equally, if part 2 and part 3 have given Ncuti a slightly more Doctor vibe, slightly more Doctor, and established him a bit more, we don't want a Doctor Light episode now. So the structure's poor.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Only when you start to think about it and say it out loud.
Yeah, there was no valid reason for that episode. It must have been contractual.
I was about to say, Doug, if this was something like a traditional terrestrial TV series that ran 24 episodes, you could get away with a Dr. Light episode. But when you've only got 8 stories to play with, you can't afford a Dr. Light story if it's about Doctor Who. It's that simple.
Yeah. Now, as you know, we normally pass our judgment on, and this is where they'll bring in anything from the episode, and so does the thread. So basically, this is when we do our matrix metrics, the classification of the pretend Blu-ray package, isn't it? That's what we do here. So basically, let me just set it up. So, where do we stand on this one? So let me just show you, how we do this. I'll go big screen so you have a chance of seeing everything. How are you going to judge this, lads? First of all, genre-wise, I must admit, it did feel sci-fi. It did look sci-fi, although I will point out that word he used, magic, and the Doctor never referred to magic, did he? Nope. The Doctor, he used to trick not Joe Grant, Liz Shaw with Bessie at the beginning and talking about that. In the Demons, we had a bit of that, didn't we? But honestly, he always used to try and explain this away. Am I getting this right, lads? That the Doctor was an anathema to magic.
He was.
As far as I understood it, he hated it. Like he always wanted to explain things in scientific terms if he could to the person.
So it just seemed mad to me that this Doctor, the 15th Doctor, then says magic. And you think, So here we go. So I've got it down as sci-fi. I suppose they'd have it down as a bit of adventure. A lot of people are trying to say it was horror. Now, where do you stand on that, lads?
There was a jump scare, but it was like a scream jump scare. So I can see the argument. It wasn't scary.
Yeah, I tend to agree. What you want to do is look at the primary, and you can hyphenize it and say it's sci-fi drama or sci-fi horror or sci-fi adventure. I think that sci-fi is probably the first moniker, and the question about the other elements depends on how much weight they carried in the story overall. And I'd be tempted because of a number of the dramatic moments to say, okay, there's a drama component to it or a soap opera element attached to it, even more than the horror, because that was how they were trying to humanize the characters.
Where do you stand, Doug? Oh, hold on, Doug. Go on. Try now.
Okay. I think there was definitely a horror element, particularly for the younger viewers watching, because there's that whole unseen monster thing. Your imagination is always scarier than any special effect, and I think that was very effective. It was also, and I don't think the category's up there, but there was a degree of suspense. So I'd say sci-fi adventure / suspense with a dash of horror. But it's really subjective, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I can't, when you judged the episode, I thought, well, that was more straightforward, linear, Doctor Who, sci-fi. There were obviously all the niggles I've mentioned. I won't go there again. Now, when it came to the Seal of Razalon, I'll go quickly down the row and see what the thread thinks. Do you say that was Doctor Who, Doctor Who, Doctor No? In my case, I have to say that was Doctor Who. What about you, Sonny?
I called the Doctor No. It's just not interesting. If it is Doctor Who, it's a very bland episode of Doctor Who. So I'm going with Doctor No. The characterization still isn't there.
Right,
I also can't get behind.
Sonny, let me ask you to expand on it, because I said I'd do that earlier, and I don't think I did actually. So, Sonny, you're livid about this episode, and I've kind of said,
so
well,
livid.
So, and I've tried to say it's the other end. So, do you want to explore that, Sonny? Why are you so angry about it?
Because there's no setup, there's no progression. It feels like it's there because it's directed and it looks nice and the tone is there. It's being more serious, but it's just nothing falls through. There's barely a story. I promise you, nobody can tell me what any of these people are doing here. Nobody can tell me what any of these people did throughout the episode. They showed up to a place. They were attacked by an entity that the Doctor's seen before, and then everybody left. It's just such a nothing burger of an episode. And Doctor Who is, to me, is a show with a serious plot, a serious episodic story that you can tell me and I can enjoy, and there's no story in this episode.
I find it fascinating. As you're talking, there's a lot of people in the thread answering the question, and most are veering towards the Doctor No element in their
really?
this is what's fascinating. I thought Lux was the Marmite episode, but actually what's really fascinating is there are lots of people online saying this is outstanding, classic, blah blah blah. And then there's also clearly people saying no. Now, you see, this is interesting because I do think, well, I need to objectively say that was a Doctor Who episode. It kind of ran like one, given quibbles. But then you've got somebody like Sonny, who's reflecting a lot of the people in the thread, saying, no way.
That really surprises me. It really does. Because to me, it felt like a Doctor Who episode. It wasn't.
It
wasn't
looks
a
like a
brilliant
Doctor Who episode.
Yeah, but
I think it looks like a Doctor Who episode, but it doesn't feel like one. It's so bland and it's just so boring.
I think it had a lot of the tropes of classic Doctor Who, if I'm honest, but even down to the fact that they were in a quarry. But it certainly wasn't the classic some people are saying, but I don't think it was as bad as well, it's all subjective, isn't it? Of course,
I think it's objective though, because like you said, it was set in a quarry, like classic Doctor Who, and I'm saying it looks like Doctor Who. It's directed like Doctor Who. It's serious like Doctor Who. It's not Doctor Who.
Well, I guess I fall somewhere in the middle then, because I'm calling this Doctored Who. In that, and you've heard me use this phrase before, I'm notorious for the deal breaker. And something can be strong on all other levels, but if there's one element that destroys suspension of disbelief, that is your deal breaker. And for me, Gatwa is the deal breaker. Any moment he breaks into flamboyance, like he does even in the opening 2 or 3 minutes of the episode, he loses it for me because he reminds me that he is not the Doctor, and we're watching Docky Who.
Well, it's Docky Who. I'm okay with Docky Who.
Give me one, Christian, your prime example, your best example of why, although this ticked a lot of boxes of sci-fi context, the ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, and it could feel like Doctor Who, it had a TARDIS, the TARDIS did TARDIS stuff. How come this Doctor, it so troubles you? I'm just asking you out there because I think we need to get to the bottom of this when we do the review, don't we? What is it about this Doctor that just grinds your gears?
Oh, babes, if you haven't heard it, then you don't know.
I can't imagine that. It's too subtle for me.
It's those flamboyant elements that he brings to his interpretation, and that's and it's in the verbiage, it's in his lingo, the way he over emotes. A lot of people say it's either over the top or it's nowhere. So the opening sequence that he has with Belinda, or his response to the character of Cassio, kind of reminds me that this is not the Doctor. This is Docky Who, as Doug says.
Wouldn't somebody say, Christian, that his distaste for Unit and the Brigadier sometimes was just what he was doing with Cassio, really?
It could be, but I have the sneaking suspicion that if that remark had come from anyone else who wasn't in the service, he would have had the same response.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? That's going to be a problem, I think, as we go through. Is there anything that needs a trigger warning in this episode? So I'm asking the thread so they can throw some up now, and I'll get your best of. Was there anything triggering in this episode? Sonny was triggered. So, Sonny, what would you say?
If I was triggered because I was bored. I would put a big B on this because I was just so bored during this whole episode. I cannot stress how I fell asleep 2 times, and that shouldn't happen.
You've watched Classic Who, and Classic Who, which I love, has a different pace because it was made in a different era. Now, you said to me the very first time we talked to each other, you did say that the first time you saw some of Classic Who, you thought it was a bit boring, didn't you?
Yeah, probably.
But you don't say that now. I know you love your Classic Who.
I'm an adult now. My brain has developed, and I'm able to go back and enjoy these classic stories because they're trying to tell me something. They're actually connected.
So your argument, Sonny, I'm just checking this out, is it's not about the actual pacing directorially. It's actually just the content of the actual story that was the problem.
Yeah, literally, I can't tell you one good moment from this story. Like, I'm thinking about it, and even the moments y'all were talking about, I'm like, that was okay at best. Like, there's not even a standout moment in this story.
So I guess out of the descriptions, you're going to say it was something dull or something, I suppose.
Yeah, I was going dull, slow. I wouldn't even call it sci-fi. I think it's more of a fantasy soap opera set in space. But yeah, it was dull.
Let's deal with the elephant in the room. So C says it here. I'm far from homophobic because I have plenty of gay friends, but I can't tolerate the Doctor being an over-the-top, annoying, flamboyant, I'd say diva. He's obsessed with the superficial. This Doctor is bothered about how you look. This Doctor is bothered about all these silly affectations, as if every word counts more than actions. This is what I am probably, so when I was listening to Christian, that is my problem, I have to say, because I don't care what he wears per se, as long as they stick to a silhouette. I don't care if his characterization is different to all the others, but not in the way that he's got an ego. He's immodest. He's a diva. This is not how the Doctor ever was. The Doctor had elements of modesty or humility the Doctor sometimes sneaked away. He never wanted the glory at the end of episodes, Curse of Peladon. He sneaked away. And that was the John Pertwee Doctor, because the John Pertwee Doctor loved a royal court. Oh my God, did he love to do all that? But he would just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And this Doctor, how did this Doctor land at UNIT last year in Legend of Ruby Sunday? Give me the loving. I mean, my God, that is not how any Doctor in the past lands or materializes. He normally sneaks in. Like I said, I'm just finishing off Pyramids of Mars, and they're sneaked, through the Priory.
Well, I would throw this idea at everyone here on the panel. If you were in a crisis situation, a building is on fire, and a diva appeared to help you, is the diva the first person you would go to and say, "Oh, yes, you're just the person to help guide us in rescuing the people in this burning building"? Or would you say,
yes.
"What are you doing?"
Yes, of course, because he's gonna hold my hand and say everything's okay and kiss my hand, and then he might even cry as he walks me out of the building.
Yeah, I agree.
Makes me feel nice and safe.
Yeah. I'm just wondering whether that Ncuti did the wrong research when he was researching Doctor Who. They must have shown him episodes of Are You Being Served, because he's much closer to Mr. Humphreys than any other Doctor I've ever seen. So maybe it's not his fault. Maybe he researched the wrong show.
But in this episode, I did think he had more. He was, as when I always talk to Rachel about this, he's more kind of contained.
He was more restrained, definitely. There were actual moments where I really was impressed, but not impressed, but not disgusted.
You're lowering the bar, Doug.
The bar is low. You
give me a moment, Doug. Just give me one moment so I can shut up.
Now, as Rachel says here, Ncuti wasn't allowed to look at the other Doctors. Remember, there was an article last year saying, "Don't look back, don't look behind you, no classic Who, all that stuff."
So he watched Are You Being Served instead.
But when you look at these telesnaps, if you get my gist, if you imagine these was telesnaps, this looks like it's a really good episode, as in it looks like a lot of action adventure, space adventure. Look at the costumes. I mean, you think,
it's hypnotism.
It's the hypnotism, I'm telling you. And because you just had a season of garbage, this is a good episode for y'all.
But that's exactly right.
This is my fourth episode. I'm not happy.
You're absolutely right, because what makes me smile is when anyone ever talks about an episode being good, their usual go-to argument was, well, it was better than Space Babies. And that's the low bar that they're comparing it to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has improved. I think the sets were wonderful. It worked. I mean, yes,
great.
Given this is a cheaper one, but we know with Doctor Who, these are sometimes the best ones when you centralize it. Base under, this is technically almost like a version of a Base Under Siege to a point.
If it was a Base Under Siege, I would have been happy. I would have been in here like, guys, this was awesome. But it wasn't. So like, if it was even if they just ripped off Midnight, it would have been better than what we got personally.
I would have loved the fact that if they could have, okay, stick with the concept RTD went with, because he's the gaffer. Yeah. If somehow he could dislocate with that Mercury waterfall, if he could dislocate it from being behind it like he did, and instead of them all getting in them shuttlecrafts and then you just get the ending bit, like I said, slightly longer story, and they're stuck on that base for longer, the shuttlecrafts still can't land, and so you've now got the creatures loose, and it's dark. And a bit like Blink, they've got to keep their alertness about them, because it might pick you as the next host. So you've got a kind of sequence of tension and suspense, because I think the ideas are fine. Stephen Moffat's silence was a good idea. I just think you need to allow us to enjoy the monster. You need to allow us to see what they can do and their capability.
But Brendan, that's why I think it needed to be a two-part story. Because they're down on the planet. Yes, they do separate the creature, and they discovered that the creature bonds through the auditory receptors in the ear. So a little bit like Silence of the Library, as we learned how the Vashta Narada operated with shadows. Now we're using sound as the modus operandi. Only the catch is, if you've got earphones in and you can't hear anything in order to avoid this, now you can't effectively communicate on the spot. Oh, but you've got the chest visuals to do that with. So you've got something to operate with. Lost opportunities.
Now, you remember when we did our first impressions of Robot Revolution, and I went to town, it just came into my head, and I thought it's really bothered me about the veterans. Remember?
Yes.
But this episode bothered me just as much because Shayla, if that was her name again, what am I supposed to learn if I'm a young kid? Because RTD tonight in Doctor Unleashed said, you have to think of the 6-year-olds. We couldn't show too much graphic death. We had to be careful. So somebody flying through the air is okay. He actually explained all that because of the 6-year-olds. Yeah. I mean, all the sexual references that he has, that's all right for 6-year-olds, apparently. Yeah. But this Shayla character, if I was a little 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old, is the military a career ahead of you? Because remember, she got the honorable mention at the end. We are supposed to have sympathy for her and think she's a hero. But actually, if you think of how the story is structured, why would I want to be her? She sacrificed herself for nothing. And an honorable mention, but you're dead. I mean, whoopee-doo. And it seems that people's judgments aren't that you're all equal. Because that lady was deaf, seemed vulnerable, and had a 2-year-old kid, she seemed to have more weight to the Doctor than this career-driven female leader of the military. And I think that's appalling as a message.
All the soldiers were just stepping stones for character development again, which is why I didn't like the episode. There's no real characters at all.
Well, we've referenced Alien. Look at Aliens. Look how well the Marines in that story were developed, even for a few minutes apiece, and you cared about each one as they got offed by the aliens at a critical juncture. You want that kind of development. One of the things I go to is I fully expected the commanding officer to end up taking the hit at the end. Number one, won't be the Doctor, because the Doctor isn't the character with the real agency here. And it's not going to be Belinda. So they're going to set it up so that this character, who I kind of liked, is going to get it. And yet, if you want to grow a character, it should be the one who's the most timid, who ends up having to stand up and grow and come to that epiphany. I'm the one who has to make the decision and take the hit. The young lady at the end should have been probably the one who pulled what the captain did. And narratively, that's how I would have tried to structure the story, as opposed to the obvious choice, which was Commander Shaya.
I just find it, Doug. I mean, you watch your movies and everything. I really struggle with this message because RTD was writing her to be a strong female representation of a leader, and she self-sacrificed herself. But I'll keep saying it, for nothing. What's the point? But the Doctor was more bothered about saving the woman who happened to have a disability and happened to have a child. Now, maybe Shayla never had any children at this point because she was involved in her military career. Why does somebody trump another person is the message that I cannot avoid.
Yeah, I don't know. I think certainly the gut punch at the end was RTD trying to be clever. The fact that the alien escaped, and it was an unnecessary sacrifice. But it was also a bit of a trope, though, wasn't it? I saw that one coming a mile away. That because they built it up, didn't they? Like I was a crack shot. I was a fast runner. You knew that was being planted. That Chekhov's gun thing was being planted, so it was going to pop up at some point, and she was going to do some sort of heroic act. But what I didn't expect, like yourself, was that it was kind of a wasted act, and I can only assume that was just RTD's way of trying to be clever, but it kind of backfired a little bit, I feel.
Yeah, and the thing I kept saying to Jamie, I'm going to say this now. Overall, I tolerated the episode, and the bar's low, but this was, as I said, the best of RTD 2's era.
I agree.
But and of course, the production values, I also keep applauding.
Very good.
But my issue is, it looks as though I'm starting to see the formula for television writing now. And what I saw in that episode, which he does a lot, is it's like I feel as though I'm a gamer and I'm on level 2, and for no reason at all, I'll pick up this object because I might need it one day. Then I go to level 4, and then suddenly I need it. I feel as though I'm playing a basic computer game, and that's the structure of his story writing. It's just too basic. Now, I did say when I was saying this to Jamie, am I being too unfair? In a 45-minute episode, it feels like everything's contrived. If it was a 4-part story as Classic Who, over the weeks, the same seeds have been sown, but because you're allowed to develop that world and that character, I think you accept the same contrivance at the end.
You're not unfair. That's the contrivances, I think, are necessary for that particular format, but it's then the difference between a good writer and a hack. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing, but I always think a good writer is someone that can write exposition and not make it seem clumsy. When I watch anything, if there's a character that somehow makes exposition interesting and part of the story, it's really good. But in most cases, they just go, so you were a war veteran from Vietnam, and that sets up the fact that they were going to be a hero. So I think the contrivances were necessary, but I think because I'm being unfair, but I really think RTD is a bit of a hack. He did it in such a clumsy way that it was telegraphed. We all saw what was going to happen, and it could have been done more effectively for sure.
I mean, Christian, I think this is it's an indictment of television writing nowadays that actually it feels just like a computer game.
It is. They're following the simplest formula. But you have to also remember that if you're doing this on the cheap and on the sly, it's all about making room so you can virtue signal. Because after all, we've got to get these special points in. Every time a character makes a comment or a remark that's not germane to the story, they've lost an opportunity to effectively plug in exposition in a deft manner or character development in a deft manner. You're throwing away something to do something else. And that's part of what television writing does now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Now, where do we all stand on this? I've mentioned the deaths and how it works, and I'm pleased to see a death count go up. However, it's just how it's shown or portrayed. And RTD, like I said, give it away and said, do you know what? And I said in the saloon last year, and I thought I was pushing my luck slightly, I said, he is the new Mary Whitehouse. And he is. He's the censor that we need to try and avoid, because he sits there going, oh, what about the 6-year-olds? Yes, I'll have a sexual reference in. That's allowed. You can ask you can do anything sexual now in front of kids. So that's allowed, but I don't know if I can show somebody being stabbed. I don't think I can show somebody being shot. I can show a cat being killed in Robot Revolution. His idea of what is a 6-year-old or 8-year-old's brain is really weird. Like I said, all these sexual references is fine.
You nailed it, because there was a scene at the very beginning, I'm paraphrasing, I forgot about it, where he's talking to Belinda, and he's talking about something about her mum having a look at his bum or something. It was one of the early scenes when he was making the promise, and he's going, it's going to be back to normal, we'll all sing, and your mum can look at my bum. Why did that need to be said?
It's Sonny, you're different generations, so when am I going too far here? Are you noticing the same things, and do they bother you the same as me?
Honestly, I think I'm more bothered by it, which is why I try not to talk about it, because I think it's pure evil. I'm seriously, I think it's actually just pure evil, and it's indicative of his ideology, and he's trying to push it on children, and that's why he says these conflicting things. But what he believes is false, and you can tell in his writing. That's why there's all these conflicting things, and so if I focus on it, I just get annoyed by it. And this wasn't a good episode to start with. So
it's just that, I mean, the stunts were great. I loved watching Unleashed this week with the stunts and them flying through the air and everything.
Oh,
but
the wire work was fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it what disappoints me yet again is, I just thought, that's part of the stunt, that it's this violent monster that can throw you wildly. But then when you hear RTD talking again, and he says, "Oh no, it was an editorial decision that we can't show anything." Well, I mean, when I say graphic, they were making decisions that when the corpse was on the floor, the corpse had to be face away in case it was too gruesome, and I'm thinking, we've come so far from the stuff we used to see in classic Who. Seeds of Doom, the implication that somebody was going into a compost heap. I mean, and this is why I came to Sonny there, because I thought, is this an implication that you lot are so sensitive that we have to protect you all from it?
Which, that's the thing, because it's not even true. I feel like people my age are much more into edgier humor than you're gonna find than the normal stuff, right? I don't know. Maybe we call them normies. Maybe they like this stuff, but I don't know. You got to play to your audience at some point, right? And then, has this audience ever shown to be into this type of stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, Christian, what are your thoughts on this idea of how deaths are portrayed in Doctor Who in 2025?
Uncompelling, I guess, is the term that I'll use. Sometimes the death of a character sticks with you, either the visceral way in which the character was disposed of. Maybe it's on camera, or conceptually, maybe it's not on camera, but you understood what happened to them. The ways in which they would pursue this was compelling in the past. There was some impactful component to it. The way it's doctored now, they're ciphers. They don't mean anything to me. And the way they pass away, the way they die, doesn't mean anything to me. And that shows a grand disregard for that particular element of storytelling.
So see here, Doctor Who needs to move away from being a kid's show. That's why it needs a break and a reboot with a new series aimed at older audiences. When I did I did 7 shows last week. I'm a madman. But on one of them last week, I can't remember which one, we were talking about making it. We always say, let's make it darker. But the other thing we added on, and the thread seemed to agree, is Doctor Who comes back later at night, like about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I think the latest Doctor Who ever was shown on its first run at all was the Doctor Who movie, and that was after 8 o'clock. And I think, that was right. Come on, can we go back to that? And then RTD can stop being a self-censor and a spoil sport and a killjoy for actually why we tune into Doctor Who. We don't tune into Doctor Who to just get a few messages about which virtues are popular, to see some nice sets and to see how you do sign language. We want to see some death.
Yeah.
Jeopardy.
I don't even know if it's that. Go ahead.
You want to see deaths that are compelling and narratively that matter.
Yeah.
Well, we've got different ideas coming here. Duncan Evans' character deaths are only there to give Ncuti another reason to cry.
Yeah, they're all stepping stones for character development. That's what he thinks they are.
Yeah, Jamie Tron, they need to have a face melt like the villain in Dragonfire. Can you imagine? They would not do that now, would they?
No.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, I was an adult when that was on, but I don't think. I'm trying to think, Doug, what's the worst thing you saw on TV that actually probably troubled you a little bit as a child?
For me, it's the stuff I don't see. because even as a kid, because obviously when I was a kid back in the Dark Ages, you could almost see the zippers on the alien costume, so they didn't convince even me. But it's non-Doctor Who, but the scariest thing was a film called, I think it was Invaders from Mars, and the aliens took the form of the kids' parents. So, and it was seen through the eyes of a child. So for ages, I didn't trust my parents. And there was a giveaway. There was a mark on the back of their neck or something that made them an alien. So the scariest thing to me was the familiar being not what it seemed, and then your imagination taking over. That's the scariest thing. Any other thing I've ever seen, I've always just managed to say, "Oh, well, that's a special effect," and I can dismiss it. Although, to be fair, The Exorcist, I've only ever seen once, and I will never watch it again.
Yeah.
But that's an exception.
Well, as I come to Christian, I'll just read this out first. So, see, has anyone ever watched the German-made Netflix series called Dark? This is how I would love. Yeah, that's how he'd love to see future Doctor Who episodes.
Oh,
My answer to this one, Christian, and then I'll come to Sonny, is if I'm just including really Doctor Who, I suppose. I know I've mentioned Sea Devils and stuff, but I think the thing that really does catch me out is the body horror, and it's body possession. And so we saw it with Ark in Space, Seeds of Doom, when the person's body is taken over by the alien. That bothered me because you always saw the hybrid bit. You saw when he was still a human. You saw with the revelation of the Dalek in that glass case, and he shouted out to his daughter for a second to save him. That bothered me, That had more resonance. What about you, Christian?
That should have. Body horror plays a big role because it's something that is familiar becoming unfamiliar. Talk about paranoia. Anyone who has seen the film The Thing by John Carpenter is familiar with that component. But ironically, as a child, because you have to go all the way back to the late 60s, early 70s for me, a moment that actually left me terrified was a scene in the Andromeda Strain. And believe it or not, there was no body horror in that. It was all implied. The scientists are in a lab. They're trying to find a way to stop a virus from getting out and killing everyone and coagulating their blood. And they realize that if the safety device, which is just getting ready to go off, a nuclear device, actually detonates, it's going to actually basically wipe out the planet instead of save and sterilize the lab. And the expression on their faces, along with the soundtrack in the background as they realized what was getting ready to happen, absolutely terrified me. I had nightmares about that for days. I didn't even know what the heck was going on. I was too young. And the way that scene was comported, the terror of it, because the actors portrayed the revelation, the terror of it themselves, was stellar. I couldn't get better than that moment.
Well, as I come to Sonny for his example, there's a lot agreeing with me. I mean, I've seen mentioned the glass Dalek. Paul Holgate here holding Sarah's arm out for the crinoid. That was actually probably the most, to me as a kid. I give my age away because it depends on the era, doesn't it? That seemed to be the most sadistic, menacing moment when you really felt, oh my God, if Sarah gets that. I mean, I've seen her with the space plague. I've seen her, attacked by various things. I've seen her blinded. But this moment with the crinoid, and if that pod opens up, I thought, whoa. And tying her down and everything, it was just seemed so wrong. Paul Holgate, the train coming towards the doctor with his foot stuck in the track, that was dramatic. The deadly assassin was it was very tangible, wasn't it? Felt very real, although it was a matrix. Squinty Mint, I loved the Seeds of Doom, but boy, did it take liberties with violence and body horror. Well, I totally agree with you. On Jamie Tron, the scariest scene was the guy turning into a Dalek in Revelation of the Daleks. Kill me, child. That was brilliant. What about you, Sonny?
I don't watch Doctor Who to get scared. I don't like being scared. I never watch scary stuff. I watch Doctor Who for world building and the plots and turns and the twists and turns. But as far as scary moments, it's a tie for two. The Bill Potts storyline, her finale where she gets turned into a Cyberman, like all
Oh
of that was
Yeah.
like that got me a little bit. But I think the scariest is the best Doctor Who story ever, Enemy of the World, Patrick Troughton, the very end where he's walking into the TARDIS and it's just two little kids waiting in the TARDIS for the doctor, and this murderer walks into the TARDIS and he looks like the doctor, and I'm like, there's no way this is about to happen right now. I was genuinely scared for these kids, and then the doctor shows up, and I was like, great, that's awesome.
Wow.
You see, this is it. I mean, and this is what the Well could have done if the RTD, the Mary Whitehouse of our generation, didn't decide to just make it a bit kind of clinical. So, see, I thought the Well was an okay episode, but I wonder if RTD decided to make it a sequel to Midnight as an afterthought. We were saying that earlier, actually, so see, I think so. The androids in the caves is what freaked Adrian out. The night gallery with the Indian doll was scary. The Rice Krispies toxin in Resurrection. Actually, that gas in Resurrection of the Daleks. Remember when they lost their arm or their hand, and that was pretty on it. Yes, Paul Richards mentions the Mondasian Cybermen. I think the way they were depicted by Stephen Moffat was outstanding. My God, they were good. And it was a good call out by Capaldi to say, bring them back. So we normally have an item near the end when we talk about night terrors. And as you know, with night terrors, it's like, okay, you've seen the episode, put it to bed. What's troubling you about the state of Doctor Who after seeing that episode, about where we are now, or the state of season 2, or the state of you take it where you want. So we're going to have a little chat about our night terrors here. And I need to practice this, folks, if you bear with me, because it's been playing up tonight. So what I do is this, and you'll see that, and then I need to tell it to do a little bit of change in here. Let's see if I can get it back. Hold on. It's classic, isn't it? This is really good. This is how it works. And here we go. So, as I always say, what is troubling us? Double sci-fi rubble, all concern and canon trouble. Christian, is there anything that we haven't said yet that's troubling you and will trouble you longer than your experience of that episode?
The trouble of the lost opportunities, because I keep seeing potential, and if it's possible for RTD to go in the wrong direction, he will. And I know where this is going to lead. This is going to lead to a hiatus of the show. No one wants the show necessarily to go away. Most of us realize it's going to have to under these conditions. And the aggravating thing is, it didn't have to be this way. It was possible to choose a better path, and RTD chose not to. That sticks with me. Long after this episode is forgotten, long after we get to the end of this season, that sticks with me.
Yeah. The thing, as I'm thinking, Doug, as I come to you, the thing that is really troubling me, and I feel as I'm on repeat loop, is I think we've run out of, the date has expired on the formula for New Who. I think this 45-minute formula is dead. The reset button. I mean, I counted tonight. It's a 47-minute episode, and we got to about 30 minutes. And then the Doctor decides to do that David Tennant bit when he starts going, I've got an idea, Mercury, do it. And then the music gets faster. And all that lovely world building and atmosphere building, suddenly, right, we have to move now for everybody and fire exit. Here we go. I think that formula's dead in the water. That's my opinion. But Doug, is there anything that's troubling you about present day Doctor Who, having seen that?
The big trouble for me is that we're building up to this finale that nobody really cares about, and probably no one's going to watch. That's a huge trouble. It's like there's all it's all they put these. I mean, remember all this was put into place before any of this happened. They had so much misguided confidence in the show, and you can imagine all their production meetings. They go, "This is going to be the best thing ever." So that all these little steps heading towards a finale that everyone promises to be, and it couldn't have been worse than the last one. Let's be honest. But literally, there's going to be nobody left to watch it, even if it turns out to be the best episode. That would be a big trouble. What if it ends up being the best finale of Doctor Who that we've seen in a long time, and it's just maybe us watching it, nobody else?
Well, Doug, I saw some people today saying, people who've enjoyed this season so far, and they're starting to say they've got 1989 vibes, because Sylvester McCoy's Doctor was starting to get in the right groove, and then it was taken off.
Yeah. I don't quite agree, but I can definitely see that there's definitely sort of remnants of that, because, like I said, if this was an opening episode of Series 1, I think we would even been much more kinder to it than we were tonight, because all the other stuff wasn't in place. But yeah, I'm just really concerned that we're building up to this next few episodes that, if I'm honest, I would have watched, but I probably wouldn't have watched them so intently if I wasn't doing this with you guys.
Yeah. What about you, Sonny, then? Is there anything troubling you? I mean, you've been troubled by this episode, but
I'm very troubled, because even when I'm paying attention, I feel like I'm missing stuff. Like, so like I feel slighted and hurt every way I go. Mrs. Flood is my favorite character, and that's my night terror that's troubling me, because she probably shouldn't be my favorite character, and there's just a lack of character moments throughout for anybody, like the soldiers, the Doctor, Belinda. I can't tell you a good scene. Like, I couldn't be like, this is a good moment for Belinda, this is a good moment for the Doctor. I can't do it. It's just so bad.
Well, we've got Dalek Lives Matters. Considering it was only 45 minutes, there was a hell of a lot of filler nonsense.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And then Laser. When do the ratings for this one come out? I want to know if Lux bumps or drops the ratings. Right. You will find that I will go to bed at some point, and the ratings should come out in about 9 hours' time, or even less, actually, looking now. And at midday, I'll be going again live. So look out for that. And I'll tell you your ratings at midday. Me and John Yulden will be on here again. I'll have matchsticks there. And then we'll have our Sunday show at 5:45. I'm trying to give you as much as I can.
1.65 it'll be. 1.65.
Yes, I said 1.67. So we're in the same ballpark, and you were right last time about 1.5.
The last two times.
Yeah.
That's right. You were.
So, well, despite the technicals, we've had a lot of technicals, and I've got one more to just get set off. If I just set this up again, classic, isn't it? Can you still hear me, lads?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's a lovely, enjoyable thing. This when the thing decides not to work, but you know that's how it is. We're not going quite yet. But yeah, don't even ask me what's gone on tonight. It's certainly not me. But the thing is,
are we still on air? Can we talk freely now? Are we still on air, or is it just?
Yeah, we're still on air. We're still on air. Still on air. I will instruct. So everybody, just so everybody knows, sometime around midday Sunday, I will be on again. Last week we were discussing that figure. And we'll be on again about the ratings. Obviously, tomorrow night, Sunday night at 5:45, we'll have the full forensic analysis with obviously the update on the ratings as well, and our Tombstone totalizer. And let's see if we can sneak the Who Pets in as well. So that's where we plan to be. And yes, we'll go for the whole week as usual, because. Well, yeah. So everybody, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you, Doug. I know you're still unwell, really. Thank you, Sonny, for your time, and I'll see you again live on Tuesday, I hope.
Yeah, for sure.
And thank you again, Christian, because you're a busy lad as well. But thanks for your time, everybody. Thanks, everybody in the thread. Please make sure you have subscribed, you have given us a like, and you tune in twice tomorrow. Okay, bye everyone.
See ya.